I'm your son.
You dishonored me. You displeased me. I am not your papa.
Papa, please.
I am not your papa. I am Parampara. It's really hard to do when you're fasting.
When we think of a broken heart, our minds usually go straight to romantic references. So many songs, so many movies. But the truth is, hearts around the world are cracked open platonically all the time, and sometimes it's worse. Friendship breakups, betrayals in business, your cult leader getting arrested. It hits you right here. But I would argue that family wounds are the worst because those are the ones that shape you as a person. Mommy and daddy issues, nothing can compare to that. Nothing can compare to when your parents break your heart. Now, if you didn't recognize my reference at the beginning of the video, that was a tune from one of the highest grossing Bollywood films of the early 2000s. It's a classic. If you're desi, you know it. It was a 3.5-hour tale about how when you follow your heart, you follow your desires, you go against your brown parents' wishes, their expectations of you, that in their eyes, you become a rat. Not that rat. That rat cooks. And you don't. Your mom would love you if you were that rat. It's a movie about how love from brown parents is not unconditional. I mean, the movie's about other things too, but for the sake of this video, we're just gonna ignore all of that. And although this video will make references to that movie, this video is not actually a deep analysis of this cinematic work of art that has bonded so many South Asians over themes of good times and bad times with family. This video is about how and why brown parents break their children's heart and how it's not as black and white as your therapist who's not culturally trained may try to make it seem. And I know if you're a brown parent watching this and you're like, hey, what about my kids, huh? Are they not breaking my heart? What about me? My response to that is the most brown parent thing you could literally ever say. Like, case in point, thank you guys. This is the end of the video. Okay, the first way that brown parents break your heart is they don't let you grow. Humans are like plants. They don't just need sunlight, water, nutrients to grow. They need space. Now, if you've ever grown anything from scratch, you know in the beginning, you can have it in like this tiny little pot as it's sprouting. And then eventually, as it gets bigger, you have to put it in a bigger pot. And then eventually you put it in the dirt so that it can just kind of grow freely. You dig it and let it grow. What you don't do is you don't tell it that growing is selfish and that it has no respect for its elders. But if you were brought up in a South Asian culture, this form of growing outside of your pot, it's counterintuitive to the very nature of what makes us us. In South Asian households, there is only one lens through which everything exists, and that is family. And family is the container in which you must grow inside of. That's what she said. It's the container that you need to grow through. It's all about the collective family unit. So what's wrong with that, Steam? Gosh, you're such a cynical woman. Throw her in the trash. Wait, before you toss me, I'll tell you what's wrong with it. Because family duty, honor, loyalty, that is what is at the top of what's most important. There's a priority of the collective well-being above all else. And what it does is it creates a rigid and inflexible environment in brown households that leads to confinement, straight to jail.
Hurry up. I don't got all day. Okay, I have another few appointments later this afternoon. So can you just talk a little faster, please?
Any sort of individualism or self-discovery, it's not encouraged outside of this family container. There's no sense of developing a self-concept, like finding out who you are outside of the context of your current or your potential future family. It's like your identity is boxed in by what your family expects of you, whether they exist yet or not. Like,
You know, I always wanted to be a painter.
I bet your mom told you you could paint after you got married.
Yeah, she did.
You see, you can get a degree that honors your family, but it can't be something that doesn't push the family forward in terms of social status or honor. You can get married if it honors the family. Collective. Sorry, Raj. Anjali is a peasant. Like, what did you think was going to happen? And you want to go travel the world? Guess what? You can travel with your future spouse. Okay? And you are also only loved if you succumb to all of this. You are shown lots of love if you stick to the script and the expectations of you. Love is very conditional in brown households. And so how can this not break your heart? Like, being stripped of this part of the human experience, self-discovery is all about exploring these different parts of yourself, what makes you tick, your emotions, your passions. And the thing is, brown parents often push you towards just fitting into a mold that has been created for you, and it hinders your growth because being denied the opportunity, the ability to explore and develop your sense of self, your own self-concept outside of the family, it can lead to a sense of emotional confinement. And it's not a box. It's not a container. It's a jail, straight to jail. And being imprisoned holds you back from growing into your true self and living life on your own terms. Has nobody ever watched any documentaries about the criminal justice system? Most brown kids either, stay in it or they break free. And either way, the consequences are dire. Like, if you stay in that prison, you'll be sleeping in a bed that's too small for you for the rest of your life. And on the other hand, if you break free from it, you have to endure the consequences of doing that, like our boy Raj. Now, there's a lot of great things about the family first mentality. Like, I live in the US, it's the polar opposite of a collectivist culture, and I see the ugliness of hyper-individualism. Don't get me wrong, it's very lonely. Everybody's very, very lonely. But the opposite end of the stick isn't great either, because you can't erase the individual. We were put in separate bodies. That's how God created us. So to rob your child of spreading their wings and having autonomy over their own life and their decisions, it's a recipe for mama and papa to break your heart. And there's a lot of emotional development stuff that happens with that. There's big problems, which I'll get into in my next point. Brown parents break their kids' hearts by keeping a cycle of unhealthy emotional dependencies going that probably started way before the parents were even born. The clothes are already dried in the dryer. How many times are we gonna repeat the cycle? It's like a nice little gift that gets passed on generation to generation, because the previous generation was probably forced to suppress so much of themselves, and it became the norm. Now, what is this beautiful gift that you ask? Enmeshment. What the heck is that? What is that? What are these words? Well, let me tell you. Enmeshment is a dysfunctional family dynamic that it's all about blurring the boundaries, okay? Excessive emotional involvement where members of the family feel overly responsible for each other's emotions and actions. And it's not good for this. Okay, so imagine a brown parent's happiness and mental, emotional well-being depends on the child's obedience. There is absolutely no way that you can spin that where that is a healthy expectation of another human being. Like, that's crazy. And what that teaches the child is that love is definitely conditional. Now, I keep saying that over and over again, and you're like, what's the problem with that? Well, here's the damage that it does, okay? What does receiving conditional love do to a child? What does it do to a person? Well, it instills this belief in the child that they're only lovable and deserving of affection when they act in a manner that meets their parents' approval rather than just for being themselves, rather for being who they are. Again, what's wrong with that? Well, sometimes the expectations are a little ridiculous. So as a result, they come to view their authentic selves as flawed, unacceptable, and unworthy of love. And I find this a big trend in brown kids. Like, nothing's ever good enough, right? And as they get older, that manifests into an adult that constantly betrays themselves to receive love and validation from others. And listen, there is a difference between healthy closeness and enmeshment. Like, families should be close, right? And healthy closeness is, hey, we're still our own people. We're just close. There are boundaries. There are things there. Whereas enmeshment, it's like everyone's identities, feelings, emotions, everything is blended. And there's a real lack of, who am I? Who are you? Elders get the same level of power as Thanos, okay? Everything they say is the law. And the thing is, they're above the law. Self-sacrifice and respect for your elders is above everything. And don't get me wrong, like, I actually really like this part of our culture to an extent, like the respect for elders, because I don't think it exists, especially in American culture. But like, it is a traditional value that like I'm on board with. But this is another level. But like, imagine just taking that to a level where like people have unlimited power. And it's not good because like, no, you can't marry the love of your life, Raj, or chase your dream career if it goes against family ambition or what they say. And that suppression just builds resentment. So in South Asian culture, like no matter what your elders do to you, no matter how they treat you, you just have to take it. And that includes abuse. Yes, abuse You just have to take it. You have to quietly endure, because there's no scenario where you going against their will or standing up for yourself isn't complete and utter disrespect. But despite that commonly held and wrong belief, there is a difference between obedience and respect. They are not the same thing. You know, they make you believe that if you have stood firm in what you believe or what you want, that you have betrayed them and the family unit. You know, you are so selfish for putting your desires above the interests of the collective. And let's be real, it's not always that serious. But the cycles continue. Like, you sad, I sad. You happy, I sad. I happy, you hate me. How is that fair? How does that make any sense? And that's just like one aspect of the emotional damage, which gets me to my next point. They turn you into Benjamin Button. If you don't know who Benjamin Button is, he was a baby that was actually grandpa, but he aged in reverse. And then when he became a baby, he was actually supposed to be a grandpa. Like, okay, so we talked about children not having the ability to have freedom over their life choices, right? Now, what actually happens when children aren't given autonomy and not able to make their own decisions? Their spouse and career is already picked out by mommy and daddy, which is a very common theme in brown families. They remain infants. They are infantilized. Infantilization. Okay, they are treated much younger than their actual age, and then they lack that independence and confidence that they can take care of their own stuff. And brown parents also infantilize their adult children by dismissing their emotions or opinions and treating them as if they are less than capable of handling life's difficulties and challenges. So you just make these like big ass babies. Like, I'm sorry, like so many brown kids are babies. Like, I can't even stand it, even with myself. Okay, and infantilization can have negative consequences on adult children's self-esteem, confidence, their ability to navigate the world independently. And at the end of the day, the biggest thing is that it strains parent-child relationships. It leads to resentment and frustration on both sides. So recognizing and addressing, this baby formation infantilization is essential for promoting healthy boundaries, fostering independence, like having mutual respect within brown households, which doesn't usually exist. So yeah, that's that. But, I explained how now the old guy is a baby. Got it. Okay, but how is the baby an old guy? Well, you see, ironically, the opposite also occurs. Adultification, parentification. Due to cultural norms emphasizing respect for elders and family duty, brown parents expect their children to take on adult responsibilities from a very young age, such as caregiving or mediating family conflicts. And this can lead to a role reversal where children are forced to become like caregivers for their parents, which inhibits their own emotional development. And let's say that's not true in terms of like responsibilities. Okay, maybe they're not paying bills or being an actual caregiver, but it goes back to the whole enmeshment thing. If you are responsible for an adult's emotions, for them to regulate themselves, you're going to be adultified because you take on that responsibility. And that's a huge thing. That's a huge weight to put on a child. And then these kids grow up and they're big babies like me, who cry on the internet about all the things wrong in the world. Okay, another big thing is emotional immaturity. It's so common in brown households, like for whatever reason, whether it's culture or all the shit that maybe our ancestors survived. Even if you watch like funny, relatable content about brown parents, it's all about the lack of emotional expression, boundary issues, resistance to change, and this like super big pressure for achievement. Like South Asian parents may struggle to express their emotions openly, and it leads to difficulty in communicating feelings and understanding the emotional needs of their children. Like, they love you because they cut fruit for you and bring it to you. But you know what? That doesn't cut it. Sometimes people need words, which culturally is not a thing. Like a lot of brown people, they don't say they love you to each other. Should that be the standard? I don't know. But emotional maturity, like it involves recognizing and expressing one's emotions, as well as understanding and empathizing with the emotions of others. Not being like, growing is selfish. Okay, you are selfish. And going back to an earlier point that I made, emotional immaturity make parents rely on children for their emotional needs, which is a recipe again for having no boundaries because the child and parent are so enmeshed. So it's just like, let's all get mature, okay? Emotional immaturity can also manifest as an overemphasis on external markers of success, such as academic or career achievements, which are a means of like validating one's own worth or seeking approval from others. Like that's just so common in Desi culture, right? Like everything's about oh, my children academically excel, you know, professionally excel, and it's like, this is my social status. It's like a way of bolstering their own self-esteem or fulfilling their own met needs, rather than prioritizing their children's well-being and happiness. The thing is, like, we are the model minority, so you could be like, Tasneem, there's nothing wrong with it, it pushes us forward, but like, I'm just poking holes, okay? I'm just poking holes because I'm the hole poker, and I mean that in the most halal way possible. Now, as heartbreaking as it can be, because I'm being kind of harsh, it's not their fault. There are so many stigmas around mental health and support, and if you have parents who are immigrants specifically, you know that these emotional issues are secondary to the journey of making sure your family will survive. So this is how it's supposed to be done. So encouraging parents to engage in self-reflection, seeking support from mental health professionals if needed, and prioritizing emotional well-being, that can really help foster healthier family dynamics. And maybe that's what the future generations are going to do. Like, I feel like millennials, that's like a major common theme in all our movies and everything, is like breaking generational trauma. So which gets me to my last point. Brown parents also break their children's heart by only caring about how things look. Now, honor culture is at the center stage in societies that uphold traditional values, like a lot of Desi cultures. Like, at the end of the day, when we talk about family being number one, we're not saying that the actual emotional well-being of the family is the most important thing. How is the family being perceived as a unit in society? Is somebody doing something out of personal ambition that's ruining our social status? We don't care about your feelings. We care about whether you're going to embarrass us with your selfish self-concept and bring shame to this family, because that will affect all the other family members standing and their opportunities to get married, to move forward, to, you know, change classes, whatever. It's like putting a fresh coat of paint on a house that's falling apart when you just care about the facade. It's not actually about doing what's best for the collective. So, and that goes into the whole model minority thing. Like, I always see these statistics about how Desis, and I hear Desis brag at dinner parties about like, oh, but like we, you know, success. And I'm like, you know, there's a lot of factors and you really have to analyze that, because we also have a lot of common problems that need to be addressed. The purpose of this video was just I wanted to make people feel validated, and I want you to understand that there are beautiful things about our culture that we come from, but when you ignore the harder parts, the darker parts of yourself and who you are, instead of embracing all of the parts of it, it's not good, okay? So I think it's really important to embrace all of these things and be able to talk about them. And it's also really important to thank all the people who came before us, our ancestors, our parents, our elders, because they did bring us as far as they did. But if I leave you guys with anything, it's that I really want you to know that it's not a bad thing to explore yourself. It's not a selfish thing to explore yourself. You only get to be yourself once. I only get to be Tasneem once, so enjoy it. And let me know, guys, in the comments below how much you hate me after I said all this. Thank you. Okay, bye. Okay. No, don't tell me you hate me, please. It's been a... Okay, bye. I gotta go. I actually have to go.